Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Holly Yoakum. I'm the Director of Community Services, and we're so glad to have you all here with us today. I apologize for the technical glitch this morning. We were joking around that if it wasn't COVID, or if there wasn't a technical glitch, it wouldn't be the world of COVID that we all live in. So I apologize for the technical problems this morning. But we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome and thank all of you for joining us. I know this is such a hard time in our community right now. And as we think through sort of what's happening and what we're dealing with in the community, Salt Lake County is happy to be able to help in any way we can. I know some of you are familiar with other programs the county has done, and as well as our just ongoing efforts in the community to continue to serve and help support the health efforts. The mayor and her leadership team put together this community partner grant program as another way to be able to reach out to our nonprofit groups in Salt Lake County and be able to help. We're hoping it's successful and that we can help you be successful in the work that you're doing in the community. We ask that you bear with us as we figure this out and answer questions throughout the program. As again, with COVID, everything seems to be moving so quickly and there's glitches, and the world we live in is changing daily with Treasury and all sorts of things like that, that we are continuing to make sure we're doing things correctly, that we're spending the money correctly, and we're helping you spend the money correctly and supporting you. I want to take a few minutes to thank the team that's helped out on this project. We'll start with Lauren Littlefield. Lauren is the grant program manager for Salt Lake County and has come online and is doing a wonderful job in getting this program up and running. Lauren will be the person you'll be talking to most with questions. Of course, you can always reach out to myself if you have questions as well, but Lauren is the main contact and we'll get back to you a lot sooner than I will. Lauren has an email and a phone number that are listed at the end of this program as well as on the website. Lauren, do you want to take a minute and just say hello to everyone?
Yes, good morning and hello. And just to kick it off, I apologize for those of you that called the phone number this morning. Not only have we had some WebEx issues, but I'm also having some Jabber issues. So I apologize for that. And if I don't answer that phone line, please send me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But as Holly mentioned, I'm Lauren Littlefield, which is my last name, and I'm the Community Partner Grant Program Manager, and I'm very excited to be here with you all. I am going to walk us through kind of the frequently asked questions of the program, if that's all right, Holly, and then we will have a chance to, oh, go ahead, Holly, I'm sorry.
Oh, so I have a couple of other people I want to introduce, Lauren, before we get there. Okay, so we have Dave Johnson and Dave Pena who are on the call with us. They are members of the district attorney's team for Salt Lake County and have been doing a wonderful job helping us navigate COVID and the CARES program. So they will be on the line and they may interrupt Lauren and I if we don't give you the correct information as accurately as they would like. And they will be answering some of the questions as they come in to help us from a legal perspective. They have also drafted the application, which will be online by the agreement that will be online today once the program opens, and have done a wonderful job. So they're a resource for us, and you may hear them throughout the program. We have Kirsten Darington, who will be guiding you through our Zoom application today. Some of you are familiar with Kirsten as she runs the ZAP program, and just want to give her a big shout out. Not only does she run the ZAP program, but she is helping us today and has been helping with the SBIG grants as well. So Kirsten's been wearing several hats this year. So thank you to her as she goes into that. And last but not least, just a quick thank you to the team members who have put together the website, all of those emails you've been receiving, as well as all the documentation and application for myself. And that's Emily Birch, who's on the call and will be moderating, Jordan Carroll, who's been amazing at helping us get the word out, Michelle Ludema, who works for our Parks and Rec team, who has also been double dipping in helping, and then Dina Blaze, who works is the director over regional development and has done an amazing job helping us get this program as well as several other programs up and running. So Lauren, do you want to?
And with that, I will now walk us through the program and the frequently asked questions. So let's just start at the beginning of this and give a quick overview. Obviously, this is, as Holly said, a really tough time in our community for a lot of, all organizations, small businesses, and just everyone in general. So this program, the Community Partner Grant Program, was created to aid 501c3 or 501c6 organizations serving Salt Lake County residents that have been impacted by COVID-19 in kind of the 4 areas that we're focusing on, which is housing and homelessness. I should turn my camera on, I'm sorry. Housing and homelessness, education and childcare, business training and support, and arts and culture. So kind of as far as eligibility goes, that's kind of the big bulk of eligibility. You must be a 501c3 or a 501c6 for at least 5 years. And part of the application process will want documentation of your tax status. So what are some of the things these funds can be used for? Well, certainly PPE, everyone's favorite new thing, but also administrative expenses, staff salaries for COVID-related projects, operational expenses, facilitating distance learning, housing-related support, food assistance, or small business assistance. And there's a more detailed list of those that can be found within the application. So how much funding can you apply for? Well, the grant funding ranges from the smallest grant available, which is $5,000, to the largest available, which is $250,000. And as with any grant, reporting how these funds are spent is required, and those reports will be due October 30th and a final report on November 30th. And it's important to note here that funding must be spent by November 30th of this year. Now, many organizations have already received funding from the CARES Act, and if that's the case for you, you can still apply for these funds. But awardees will be expected to adhere to the federal guidelines and ensure that you're not duplicating those uses. And again, so many organizations have created multiple projects to sort of change missions and deal with the impact of COVID. So if you're wanting to apply for funding for more than one program, you totally can do that, but you have to adequately account for how each program is tied to the impact of COVID-19, and you have to submit a separate application for each of those programs. So the application opens today at noon. So shortly after, the end of this webinar, it'll open at noon, and then it's a 2-week window for applications, and it closes Friday, October 2nd at 5 p.m. And at that point, all the applications will be reviewed together. So how long it'll take for approval? Once your application is submitted, like I just said, they'll all be reviewed at once, and funding decisions are expected to be made by the 14th of October. So a little bit deeper into the documentation that's required and into the application itself. So there's several documents that you'll be required to submit as part of the application. One of those is verification of how the application is COVID-19 related. Also providing documentation that shows that expenses for the program were not incurred prior to July 1st. So that would be, an approved budget, a board approved budget, and then a revised board approved budget, or board meeting minutes or emails that have timestamps. So those would be the examples of those documents. And then also documentation that the funding will not be a direct revenue replacement. Obviously, a copy of your organization's IRS tax designation, copies of your 2019, 2020, and 2021 approved budgets, a list of your board of directors, a written conflict of interest policy, a written procurement policy, and then documentation of your community served. So something that tells us who you serve, which I'm sure you all have. Now I'm going to turn the time over to Kirsten Darington, who is amazing, and she is going to walk us through the Zoom Grants program, which is the application you'll be filling out the application with. So Kristen, let me just stop sharing my screen.
Hey, everybody. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? I should be sharing the Community Partners Grant website.
We can't, Kirsten.
Cannot. There we go.
Apologies. Okay. Always get that right on the second try. All right, everyone. So I'm going to walk you through the application, I'm going to start with where you can access the application itself. So to begin this, you're going to want to visit www.slco.org/partnergrants. And this link we'll share at the end of this webinar. But it will take you to this webpage where if you scroll down, you can see this is where you're going to find a lot of the information Lauren just shared on the grant. So overview, eligibility, application details, as well as the list of required documents. So this is our landing page, and we hope you'll visit this early and often to get information on your grant. So once the grant application itself is live, you'll want to click on this link here, and this will take you into Zoom Grants to start your application. So if you try clicking this now, it won't work, but at noon it will be open. So once you click on this, you'll be taken to Zoom Grants. Let me move this over here. And you can see, you'll see the Community Partners Grant, but it says you must be logged in to start a new application. Many of you I know have used Zoom Grants before, so you can log in up here with your existing information to get to the application. Or if you don't have an account, you can quickly create one here by adding your email, your password, your first name, your last name, and then you'll click on the button, the new organization account. So whichever option you choose, you'll want to do that first. And then when you'll see that you can now apply for the Community Partners Program, you're going to want to click this Apply button. And sorry, I'm trying to move that where it won't be in the way. So what this will, so this says no additional applications allowed, but what it will say is your application has now been started, you may proceed. So once you're in here, this will automatically save your account. This is your application. You'll be able to log back out and log in anytime to access this application. And what you'll do is, I'm going to log out right now to demonstrate that. To access your application once you've created it, you will go to zoomgrants.com/login. And you'll make sure you click the login button. And so this is where you will come back to access your application once you've started it. You won't go back to the Community Partners Grant website. So let me just make sure I'm entering the right email. So once you come back in, this will be where you'll have your incomplete applications listed here. So then you'll access them here. I don't have this here yet because it didn't let me start that one. But we're going to go into one that I have started for the purposes of this demonstration. Okay, so now I go back in the application. You'll see at the top, you'll have instructions, you'll have the introduction and background for the application itself. You'll see all of the other information Lauren has covered about the funding priorities and what we're looking for with this type of program. You'll see a list of restrictions. And then you'll also see a library of resources that will help you as you're answering the questions in this grant. So you can also choose to hide these at any time to help you better navigate through the application, but we encourage you looking over all of that. So now this application has 5 tabs to it that you'll see here, and that's how you'll move through the application. There's the application summary, capacity, the application questions, the budget, and then finally the documents tab that is where you'll upload the list of required documents. So to get started, you'll scroll down and you'll want to enter in your contact information first here on the summary tab, okay? And you'll want to make sure this information you're entering is correct. This is how we'll contact you. This is our form of communication. So then another thing you can do on this page is If you want to give somebody else access to edit your application or review your application before you turn it in, you're going to add them here under the collaborators. So you'll enter their contact information here. And then if you want to give them access to edit the application, you'll need to make sure to click this box here under editing access, and then you'll click invite. This will generate an automatic email invitation for them to go in and see the application. So once you're done filling out this first summary tab, you'll click the next button here to move on, or you can scroll back up to the tabs here to navigate throughout the application. Now, just a note, as you're going through the application, it will automatically save your work. So if there's not a save button, if you need to log out, it'll just save as you move throughout the application. So all applicants should complete the quick analysis in the capacity tab to ensure that these funds are really a good fit for your program. So that's what this first tab is really all about. So before the impact of your program can be reviewed, there are factors related to eligibility, compliance, and your agency's capacity that must be considered. So if you believe that if you have any areas of concern regarding the suitability of your project, we strongly encourage you to reach out to our team, to reach out to Lauren before proceeding with your application. So your response to the questions on this tab, and I'm going to just show you really quickly in here, just some of the things we ask. These responses will be reviewed by the Salt Lake County staff, and then that'll help us better understand your eligibility and whether your application meets the minimum requirements to be considered by the allocation committee. So once you're done filling out the compliance tab, you're going to click next or move on to the third tab, which is the application questions. So in the application questions, there are 11 questions here that will help us better understand your project. So these questions look at things like the type of activity that is being proposed, how you're serving your constituents as part of the COVID response, and how you've developed your budget, your project's budget. And then you'll go into more detail on that on the next tab in the budget, on the budget form. And then finally, the last parts here of these questions is how your agency is going to ramp up and ramp down your response to COVID in light of receiving this funding. And then finally, a couple questions related to racial justice and equity in decision making. So these 11 questions will complete the bulk narrative of your application. A tip that we like to tell people in Zoom grants is once you're done typing your answer, as a form of backup, we strongly encourage you to copy and paste your answers into another document just to make sure they do save correctly and you can access them easily later. Again, this does autosave as you move through the application, but it's just a tip we like to tell people. So if you click next, you'll go from the application questions and you'll go into the budget form. And these instructions above will always be at the top of the application unless you hide them. So don't get confused if it looks the same on every tab. All right, so the budget tab here is really focused on the project itself. So it's not your entire organization budget. It's just what you're doing for this proposal, for this specific project. So we do ask for organizational budgets under the document tab. So this budget form is broken into two tables: program funding sources and revenues, and then program funding uses and expenses. You'll note that this is also broken into committed and non-committed funds, which we really want to see for your funding sources. So for example, your community partners grant would go into non-committed, whatever that requested amount was, and then other revenues, if it was individual donations, if it was other programming funds, you would type that description here and then enter in the amount of whatever that might be. So then that will auto total at the bottom, but if you want to see those totals and they're not popping up, you'll scroll to the very top of the page and click the refresh page to see those totals. Going back down into the budget form, for expenses, this is where you'll also be able to type in if it's salaries related to the COVID project, if it's materials, or if it's personal protective equipment. You'll type in that description here and enter in the amount in the committed column. And so once you have completed that, you'll want to check and make sure these both totals, the funding sources and the expenses match. And down here, we'd appreciate if you had any specific notes to add about any of the line items to help explain a little bit better. Say, okay, well, we say materials for this project. Well, is that equipment? Is that marketing materials? Is that anything like that to help us better wrap our heads around what your proposal is going to look like would be extremely appreciated here. So then once you have completed all of this, you'll move on to the final page of the application, which will be the Documents tab. So there is a list of documents that Lauren reviewed before we got here, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there. But what you'll do is I'll show you instead how to upload the required document. So you can see I've already uploaded several documents here. But let's say I want to upload another document listing the communities that I've served. I'm going to go into Upload. And this will open another window. So there's a couple steps here. So you'll first type in the name of the document you're uploading. And you'll click File Upload. And then as the third step, you're going to click Choose File. And pardon my desktop. You'll click the file you need to upload. And then as the final step, you'll have to click Upload Now. So there's 4 steps here. And once it's done that, it says your file has been uploaded. You can test the link to your document when you then close this window. So you can test it here, or you can close the window. And then if you go again to the refresh page button, you can review your final list of documents and make sure everything's there. So yes, we can see 2 documents are now uploaded to documentation of community served. And now I can tell I have all my other documents here and I'm pretty much ready to submit my application. And once you're ready to submit, you're going to hit the Submit Now button. But I strongly encourage you to do one final zoom through of your application to check each tab, make sure the information is there, make sure it looks how you want it to. And then once you've done that, you're ready to submit. So when I hit this button, I will have this pop-up information appear, and it's basically certifying that everything you've entered is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge. And then it also gives us this nifty GRAMA notice, letting you know some information about submitting this application and what it means for the purposes of GRAMA. If for some reason you're missing a required question or a required document, instead of seeing this initials box, you're going to receive a red message that says, oh, there's an error, please go back and fix this on the application questions tab. Or a lot of times it's because you're missing contact information. So if you get that prompt, you're going to want to go back to the part that this red message will tell you to and just address that. Once you have that resolved, you'll be able to submit the application properly. So then you're ready to submit. You'll enter in your initials, certifying that you agree to these statements and that your application is complete, and you'll hit the Submit Now button. And sometimes it takes a minute because it likes to make you sweat a little bit. But what this will do is this will take you to a confirmation submission page that says success, your application has now been submitted. So you will also receive an email from notices@zoomgrants.com saying, hey, here's your application you have submitted. You're going to want to make sure, if you're applying for this grant, that you add notices@zoomgrants.com to your safe senders list so it doesn't go to your junk folder. You can also download a PDF copy of your application here for your files. So really, that is how you submit the application in the system. Again, if you want to access it later, you can go back to zoomgrants.com/login to see your application. And then those are really the big things. So Lauren, I think that's everything I have right now, until we get to questions. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Well, thank you, Kirsten, so much, and for being our Zoom Grants guru. Really appreciate that. As has been mentioned a couple of times, you guys can always email me, and the link to that email is in the chat, but it's Community Partners Grant. at slco.org. And I believe my phone is working now, and that phone number is 385-468-7001. You can reach out to me anytime. You can also visit our website, and I'm happy to help answer your questions. I'm guessing there's quite a few questions after all of that, so I'm going to turn it over to Holly for some Q&A.
Really quick before Holly gets going, Lauren, I just wanted to clarify, they do not need to submit multiple applications for each program. They just need to make a note in their application of the different programs. Each organization can submit just one application as long as they're very clear about the different programs that they're applying to fund.
Yes, so I apologize. I misspoke in the FAQ section. So if you want to apply for multiple programs, you only need to submit one application. You just want to be very clear about the different projects within that application. Thanks for flagging that for me, Emily. I appreciate it.
Hey, I think Emily's going to go ahead and ask the questions that are in the chat, and then I'll respond, and I may punt some of them to one of the Daves or to Lauren as well.
Yeah, so if you guys can put your questions over in the chat, I already have a couple. Monica Whalen would like to know if there's going to be an SBIG round 3, and does this grant replace that?
And on that one, I will let Jordan speak to that, as she's been handling the SBIG grants.
Sure. So this does not replace SBIG. It is a different grant program. It is a different application. And as of right now, we can't say whether or not there will be an SBIG round 3. SBIG round 2 does close by the end of today at 5 p.m. After which we will be processing all of the submitted applications for approval or denial. Only after we process all of those will we know whether or not we have spent all of the funds that SBIG has been funded with or not.
And for those of you, SBIG is a small business grant program that the county is also doing. So.
Okay. Crystal would like to know what would fulfill the documentation for communities served?
Sure. I think this is just a list of those communities that you'll be serving. This is pretty straightforward with other grants. Is, you know, if you could just let us know, one, the organizations you'll be serving or the individuals, you'll want to highlight that they're individuals in Salt Lake County and list those groups that you'll be reaching out to and how your program will serve that community.
And Natalie would like us to restate the application amounts they can apply for and which types of organizations can apply. The first few slides were just kind of quick.
Yeah, if you want to throw them back up there, Lauren.
Yes, just 1 second. The amounts are, the smallest grant available will be $5,000. The largest will be $250,000. I apologize for going fast.
And while we have this up, I just want to clarify a couple of things on the reporting. So the funds have to be spent by November 30th, but you can prepay for things throughout the month of December. You'll just need a report that you prepaid for them when you submit your report. So there'll be 2 reports that we'll request from you. If your application is approved, you'll receive a link, and it's an online format that you'll go in and enter the information. You'll need to submit a report on October 30th and another report on November 30th. And that will be the November 30th should be your final report, so that we have time to go back through and make sure that we have all the information so that the Salt Lake County can do their reporting by the end of the year in December. But you can prepay for expenses throughout the month of December in November before that November 30th deadline.
Okay, and Dennis asked if the project could have been planned but not underway prior to July 1st.
Yes. So if it's, I mean, the biggest thing is but for COVID. So you really need to demonstrate that these programs are COVID related, that you're doing your business in a different way because of COVID. And so the program could have started in April or May, but we're only going back through July 1st to do a reimbursement.
So for organization whose new fiscal year starts on July 1st, how did they document that the project wasn't previously budgeted for 2020?
We're really counting on you to give us that information. So if you have a board who approved new programming, we'd love approval. If you have two different budgets, one, I mean, like Salt Lake County, I assume most of you had to do a new projected budget through the end of the year as you had to change your programming. Some of that documentation may come from the type of program. I'll use SB Dance as an example. I know Stephen Brown normally has one set of programming, and because of COVID, he's created a second set of programming, which is where he's taken a stage and traveled. And so just demonstrating that it wasn't something you were previously doing in your organization. Ideally, board minutes, adopted budgets, those types of things would be ideal. If you struggle with that documentation, you can always reach out to Lauren and we can make sure whatever you do have is sufficient.
Great. And Tracy Collins has a question about staffing. She says, I understand that you can use funds for staff time working on projects, but you also said the project couldn't exist before July 1st. Does that mean staff working on projects would have to be hired after July 1st?
No, and again, the project could have existed before July 1st, as long as it's, but for COVID. So if you're doing online programming now, that would qualify. And the staff time on that or additional staff could qualify. And I'll let one of the Daves, if there's a clarification, if it's not as clear the way I'm saying it, one of the Daves, feel free to jump in. But essentially, the time spent on a new COVID project would be eligible.
Brian Higgins was asking about the 5-year rule. They started in December 2016, but have been a volunteer. They got their 501c3 in December 2016, but they were a volunteer service program since 2014. I'm going to assume we'll take those on a case by case and talk to people individually about their organization. So I'm going to move on from that. So Brian, we'll get back to you personally. And then the next question is, Carla would like to know if we are planning on making changes to an existing program to begin in January, would that qualify? Let's see.
Can you say that one more time, Emily?
Yeah, I might need some clarification, Carla, if you could type that in. If we were planning on making changes to an existing program to begin in January, would that qualify?
That's a good question. I may have to get back to you on that one. I mean, the funding has to be spent this year, so I would say that it wouldn't. If the Daves disagree and there's a way that that would qualify, let me know. But I think the funding has to be spent this year.
That's correct. The law requires that all funding, even the county's funding, come to an end by December 30th. We can't be spending into next year, and the contract will require that they spend by November 30th.
So Dave, they're asking if they can prepay for January expenses?
No, that has to be for an expense that is necessary during the grant period time, which will end on December 30.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Roger would like to know how the funds will be distributed.
So once you receive approval from Salt Lake County, you'll receive a link to a contract. Once that contract is signed, if you're already in the county system, we'll be able to send the money directly to you through ACH. If you're not in the system, we'll send you paperwork to get you set up, and those funds will be in a one-time lump sum payment that will be delivered to you once the agreement's executed and we have you set up in our system. Our goal, we understand this is a fast turnaround for spending as well as applying and reviewing. So our goal is to do it as quickly as possible. So our hope would be is that as soon as once we receive the information and you receive a confirmation from us, the agreements are already pre-filled out and ready to go. We will send those to you along with the paperwork to get set up in the Salt Lake County system if you're not already, and then we'll get those funds to you as soon as we can in a one-time lump sum payment.
Great. If an organization is proposing multiple programs, must they fit within the $5,000 to $250,000 range when combined, or can each request be at the max?
Though it'll be combined.
Since the reports are due starting October 30th, which is only 2 weeks after notification, when will the requirements for those reports be available so that they have time to gather the information?
Well, that will be, once you receive the application saying that you're approved, you'll also be able to see the reporting link that has all the information of what's necessary for the report. And our hope, you know, the 14th, we're going to do everything in our power to get back to you before the 14th. So we're going to work as quickly as we can. We have no idea the size and the number of people that are going to apply. So we gave ourselves a little bit of time, but we're going to do everything in our power on our end to get back to you as soon as possible once we're closed and we're able to review them. So we'll work diligently on our end to get you information as well.
Childcare programs. What about childcare programs that have existed previously but have had to be reconfigured due to emergency conditions and licensing requirements and are also experiencing low enrollment?
Can one of the Daves respond to that?
I'm sorry, a lot of it's a policy decision, but we can cover some of the CARES will cover. I don't know there was a mention there about I guess their businesses dropped off. CARES wouldn't cover that. CARES funding could be used for if you have to social distancing, learning at home, that type of thing. CARES money can be used for that type of expense.
And Laura, if you have more questions individually, you can, let's get with Lauren after this and we can start to go through those questions.
Emily, I was going to say the same thing. If they're specific to your organization on something you want to apply for and it qualifies, please send us an email and we'll respond to you individually so we can look at exactly what your question is and we can do a little bit more research as well.
Carla wants to know if they can prepay costs for January, and you cannot. Your costs have to go through December 30th, so you can prepay costs that you'll incur in December, but not into January, unfortunately. Let's see.
And Emily, just to let everybody know, these are guidelines from the federal government that we have to adhere to, and so that's why we're not able to do that.
Is the funding limited to program development, or could it be used as emergency support for individual artists?
That's one where I think if we could do an offline conversation, I think we'd have to understand a little bit more on what that would look like, and we'd have to bring the Daves in to talk about what that emergency support is for, and if there's other opportunities to help those artists as well. So I think I can't remember who answered that question, but maybe that's when we could follow up with offline, Lauren, and talk to them a little bit more.
Okay. Francisca says, we can prepay for December for programs. How about staff time for December payroll?
Yeah, I believe as long as if you can prepay it, it shouldn't be a problem to do December payroll. Dave, do you agree with that?
I think as long as you can expend the money under the federal requirement, it has to be spent by December 30. So as long as you can show that you have paid that money under the contract, it should be fine. I'm not sure how you prepay employees, but anyway, that's.
Oh, come on November 30th, just pay the whole month of December. No, but the other thing you can also look at is you can go back through July 1st. So if there's expenses as well going back through July 1st, those are also reimbursable as well, just to clarify that.
Would computer upgrades qualify as an expense to deliver better virtual programming?
Yes, if you can show that that's needed and required for your organization to continue to do the programming, and it's because of COVID that you're having to do this programming in this way, it would qualify.
Will award amounts only be given in full as asked, or is there a chance that if awarded, it would be a percentage of the requested amount?
Each application will be reviewed, so there is a chance you may not get the full amount that you request. You may get a portion of the funding that's requested, and that'll be determined by funding availability as well as other applications or other information in the application.
Is this a first come, first served rolling application, or will all of the applications be reviewed after the submission deadline?
All of the applications will be reviewed after the application deadline.
Can you talk more about the over 50,000 additional oversight and case management requirements?
Yeah, I'll let one of the Daves jump in on that one and give a little bit more information on those requirements if they don't mind.
Well, basically, if it's under 50, the federal government allows the county to report that spending in the aggregate. So we have less reporting requirements. If it's over 50,000, the federal government requires that we break it down a bit into categories. It's nothing too onerous. And my understanding is the county will be sending a link to the businesses where they can fill in their reporting on the smart sheet or whatever it is that the county provides. Dave, do you have any detail?
No, that's accurate. It really just does come down to tracking via the categories that the federal government has outlined.
Okay, and I have a couple of comments about eligible costs. So just to clarify, yes, your eligible costs could go clear back to July 1st. They can be backdated. We can reimburse for those. You could have spent the grant already, and then we'd be reimbursing. You do not have to have costs in October, November, December, just to clarify that, because I've got a few people asking about that. And then Derek wanted to know, there's no priority based on the order the applications are submitted.
No priority based on order.
That's all the questions I have on the chat. Does anyone have any more they want to put in really quickly? Roger would like to know, is marketing spending covered or reimbursable?
That would really depend on what the marketing's for. So if you're marketing for a new program that was created because of COVID and you can justify that is needed, then it would qualify. But you just really need to give us more information about what the marketing cost is, the impact, and the sort of but for COVID reason that marketing is needed. So if it's a new program and you're marketing it for COVID, that would probably qualify. We just need more detail to understand it exactly.
Christine would like to know how much is available in the entire grant for everyone that's applying.
Sure, we aren't setting an aggregate fund amount on it. We are planning to wait and see what requests come in through the applications, and then decisions will be made on approvals at that time.
And Jerry would like some clarification. So funding can apply toward any programming that has had to adjust to COVID-19 as long as it falls within the time frame, or does it need to be new programming due to COVID-19?
So let me give an example. And again, this is one of those questions that we may need to talk to you offline to understand. But if you had a program that you were offering, let's say the symphony, they put on symphonies all the time, performances, monthly or quarterly, and all of a sudden they needed to now redirect and go online and create a different platform to be able to serve the community, that would still qualify for those costs that were related to COVID that are in addition to. I hope that makes sense. The same thing if you have to bring on more staff because of social distancing and because of cleaning, that would qualify as well. If you're having to buy more cleaning supplies or certain cleaning supplies, so you already have a budget for cleaning, but you're having to bring on more staff or more supplies or buy more equipment that's specific to help with the sort of the fight against COVID, those costs would qualify.
So I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. Lauren, do you want to kind of take back over and?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much, Emily and Holly and Dave Johnson and Dave Pena. As you guys have heard, you guys can feel free to reach out individually with any questions that are more specific than what we covered today. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing your applications start rolling in, as well as your questions. And thanks everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Holly.
Oh, sorry, Lauren. Just one thing as we end, I do want to make sure that everyone, if you have received other funding, CARES funding, you'll just really want to work with your accountant or whoever's doing your financials to make sure you're accounting for the fact that you're not spending money, you know, covering the same payroll that you just used with PPP funds or some other CARES funding. So just as we end that, that's one thing to also think about as you're applying for these grants is what other funding you've received, and to make sure that you're not using this funding for the same purpose over and over again.
All right. This webinar will be available on our website. It will probably be available early tomorrow morning would be my guess. So you can come back and view this as many times as necessary, or feel free to, like I said, reach out to me individually. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful day.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for all you're doing in our community.
Thank you.